Thank you all so much for being here and for braving the wintry chill. I can assure you that tonight's program will not disappoint. We're just getting started here with our spring season. From now through June, we'll welcome to this stage some of today's most prominent and influential writers, thinkers, and creators, and I sincerely hope that you'll join us. Tickets are selling fast, so please do register for these events at our webpage, freelibraryfoundation.org. I want to say just a few quick words about our organization in general. The foundation works together with the Free Library to support programming and advance its mission of promoting literacy throughout the Philadelphia region. Now, as a nonprofit, of course, we are reliant upon your support to help us achieve these goals, so please do consider donating, which you can also do through our website. Again, that's freelibraryfoundation.org. Before we get to tonight's program, there are a few people and organizations I would like to thank. First of all, Uncle Bobby's, our partner bookseller, and the Philadelphia Citizen, our media partner. And I'd also like to thank the volunteers, a dedicated group of library patrons who help us to run this series. Tonight, we welcome Marc Shaiman, who is a renowned American composer, lyricist, arranger, and music producer known for his work across film, television, and theater. Shaiman began his career as a musical director and arranger for Bette Midler before expanding into film scoring. He gained prominence with his work on films such as When Harry Met Sally, The Addams Family, Sister Act, City Slickers, A Few Good Men, Sleepless in Seattle, The American President, and South Park. On television with SNL, and with his recordings with Harry Connick Jr. and Mariah Carey. He earned widespread acclaim for co-writing the Broadway musical Hairspray, his longtime co-lyricist, Scott Whitman. The duo has also co-created musicals Catch Me If You Can, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Some Like It Hot, and Smash. He's been nominated for multiple Academy Awards and has won a Tony, 2 Emmys, and 2 Grammys. Tonight, he will be speaking with us about his wonderful new memoir, Never Mind the Happy, which manages to be both humorous and poignant in equal measure, a tribute to the power of music, the pull of the spotlight, and the beat that never stops. He will be joined in conversation by Alan Zweibel, who is an original Saturday Night Live writer and 5-time Emmy winner, whose television work includes It's Gary Shandling's Show, The Late Show with David Letterman, and Curb Your Enthusiasm. His theater credits include the Tony Award-winning 700 Sundays with Billy Crystal, Martin Short's Fame Becomes Me, and Bunny Bunny, adapted from his best-selling book about Gilda Radner. Alan is the author of 11 books, including the Thurber Prize-winning novel The Other Schulman and his memoir Laugh Lines. In recognition of his wide-ranging career, the Writers Guild of America East awarded him a Lifetime Achievement Award. Now, this evening will also feature performances from Matthew Gallagher, principal trumpeter of the Philly Pops Orchestra, and from vocalist Kat Brunner. Folks, I know that you're as excited for this program as I am. Please join me in welcoming Marc Shaiman and Alan Zweibel.
I'm Mark, he's Alan.
Welcome, thank you for coming. Tonight we're going to talk to Marc Shaiman about him and his glorious career, which is chronicled in this new memoir, which I read, which you guys will love. I've never lied to you before, okay? Never Mind the Happy. Now, where did that title come from?
Never Mind the Happy. It came from the day that my mother defined Judaism, when my sister called her on New Year's Day and said, "Ma, I want to be the first to wish you a happy and healthy New Year." And my mother said, "Never mind the happy." So that's what's coursing through my blood. And yeah.
Well, I'm just finding out now that we may have the same Jewish mother, okay?
Yeah.
You could very well be my brother, and we never knew this before.
I can see it.
No, you can see it. No, because I once asked my mother about being happy. She said, "What do you want out of life?" I said, "To be happy." She said, "You're not going to be happy." She says, "Just try to get from one end of it to the other without too much shit sticking to you." So,
Well, I got a million mother quotes.
go ahead.
Once, some years ago, I call my mother every Sunday, and once she said, "So what'd you do this weekend?" And I said, well, maybe a little full of myself. I said, "I rehearsed with Billy Crystal all day and then recorded with Bette Midler all night." And she said, "So maybe through them you'll meet someone important?"
All right, well, I got one mom thing for you then. We were kosher in our home, okay? We, two sets of-
Kosher.
Kosher.
I couldn't tell if you said coaching or kosher.
Kosher in our home. And we had 2 sets of dishes and 2 sets of silverware and all of that. Until my mother found out that they opened a Chinese restaurant about a mile away from the house. So my mother rewrote Judaism. We went to the Chinese restaurant because she says we have 2 stomachs, one for indoors and one for outside the house. This goes on. She then found out that this Chinese restaurant delivers, okay? So what happened? She said, "Okay, they can deliver, but we'll have to eat the Chinese food in the garage." Because that's where the car lives, okay? So that's what we did.
I would say that will be the end of our very Jewish section of the evening,
Yeah.
but I know better.
No,
Yeah.
I'm going to end my part of the Jewish section by talking about these 2 Jewish men who were on the deck of the Titanic as it was going down. One of them started weeping, and the other one said, "What are you crying for? It's not your boat."
I'm going to make myself comfortable. I sit like this.
So let's start here. This book, what you'll love about it is not only Marc's remarkable career, okay? The path that he took, the voices that he heard, the passion that he had to defy what was normal in everybody's life to achieve what he wanted to do.
You're making me sound schizophrenic.
Well, yeah. Marc was on medication at 7, okay? And I loved, what you have not lost is any of the humanity. The book, Scotch Plains, right?
Scotch Plains, New Jersey, so somewhere right between here and New York City, yeah.
And how you would go into the city and you would go to clubs and you would sleep on other people's couches and stuff just to realize what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I got into community theater when I was a kid. The first moment when I knew I liked show business was I could play piano really well, but there was no music in my elementary school. And so no one outside of my house knew the way I played piano, just my aunts and uncles and cousins. And then when I got into junior high school, a girl said, "Oh, there's a summer musical theater workshop, and they're doing The Sound of Music. You want to come with me?" So I went, and I said, "Can I audition to play piano?" And the director, she said, great woman named Judy Cole, she said, "Well, there's the piano, kid. Go play." So I went over there and played. I don't remember what I played, but I'll never forget when I finished playing and I turned around, and they were all very quiet, just staring at me, because I was like a pimple with 2 legs. But I could play like the ghost of Al Jolson had taken over my body, and that feeling of them, that attention, like that was it. Schoolwork went out the window, and then I did community theater for like 3 years. I did every show that was ever written with all adults. The same situation where she brought me to Funny Girl she was doing, and the cast was like, "What? He's our musical director?" And she was like, "Marc, go play." And I went and sight read the overture to Funny Girl in front of them, and they were like, "Okay." So, and then by the time I found out you could take a test and get a diploma and leave school at 16, I did that. And my parents just saw how dedicated I was. You're going to have to interrupt me at some point because I'm going to basically do the whole book
No,
right here.
I just completed tomorrow's Wordle, okay, so don't worry about it.
Meanwhile, I was a Bette Midler fanatic. So I'll jump right to Bette Midler.
Go right to Bette
Yeah,
Midler.
so as a kid, I did nothing but listen to the Mary Poppins soundtrack. You know, I guess it came out when I was 3 or 4, and that's all I listened to. I was obsessed with it. And then Bette Midler's first 2 albums and puberty all happened at the same time. I don't know if that was for any.
No,
certain-
it's for all of us.
Yes.
Yeah, so you'll really-
And I became obsessed with Bette Midler, and Bette Midler posters on my wall. And I found out she was doing a concert on Broadway, and I stole money from my father's wallet. And I cut school, and I went to New York, and I had a fantasy while I was watching her, a real daydream that I would run down the aisle and say, "Oh, Miss Midler, I know every note of every song on every record. Please let me play for you." Cut to, I'm 16 years old. I go to New York with a friend to go see a musical. We run into some other friends from New Jersey. We were there down in the Village, and we said, "Oh, let's catch up." I was 16 years old. What was there to catch up on? But we stepped into the place that we happened to run into our friends, and it turns out it was Marie's Crisis, a piano bar that's still kind of a legendary piano bar in New York. And I started playing. There was no one in there, and it was a piano. And the bartender, it suddenly became like a 1930s movie. The bartender with this broom, and he goes, "Hey, kid, you're good. Stay right here." And he went next door. There was a group of people rehearsing a comedy act who needed a funnier piano player. And I became their piano player. He also hired me to play at the piano bar. He didn't know I was 16. And I started staying with these friends, these new friends, and they happened to live across the hall from one of Bette Midler's backup singers. They're called the Harlettes when they're with Bette Midler, and they wanted to do their own act. And because I was right there and I knew the harmonies so that they would want to do from studying Bette Midler records, I became their musical director. They did a cabaret act. It went very well. Bette Midler said, "Girls, come back on the road with me on my next tour and I'll let you open the show." So I was flown to LA to teach Bette Midler's band the Harlettes material. And then I went and sat on a little couch in the back of the rehearsal studio, and they're up on a stage, and in walks Bette Midler. I just can't believe it. I mean, if that had been all, that would have been enough. I was in the room with Bette Midler, and she was rehearsing. I couldn't believe it. And then she called out a song to the band, "You know, I'd like to sing No Gesturing." And they looked through their music in the stands, and there was no music for that song. And one of the Harlettes went over to Bette and said, "You see him back there?" And Bette Midler, kind of like Norma Desmond in Sunset Boulevard, said, "You there. Can you play No Gesturing?" And I actually got to walk to a stage and go, "Oh, Miss Midler, I know every note of every song on every record. Please let me play for you." So that's an absolute true story, and I got 1,000,000 of them. They're all in that book.
Well, let's stay with Bette for just a second, because she runs throughout the whole book, because she's still a huge part of your life.
Yes.
Okay. She'll ask you for songs. You'll do shows for her. What I didn't know was I have something here. I wrote down notes, and this one I don't know what it means, but it's under the Bette Midler section. It's a song called "My Pussy Bone Broke."
No. Oh, my God. We're in Philadelphia. Please.
On the back of a 2-hump camel.
That's
okay?
our friend Jennifer Lewis. I was on the around the world trip with my friend Jennifer and my husband Lou, and we were in the Gobi Desert on the back of camels, taking a ride in the Gobi Desert. And you'll pardon, he's already said it, so I'm going to say it out loud. My friend Jennifer, who is a bawdy gal, she turned to me from the camel next and said, "Mark, I think I just broke my pussy bone." That's all I needed to hear. I wrote her a song that you can Google. You go home and Google Marc Shaiman, Jennifer Lewis, "Pussy Bone," and you'll hear us sing the song. I can't sing that song now. I cannot even believe I said it. But a nicer song. I really earned my stripes in the world of Bette Midler. I started working with her as a vocal arranger, and then I worked on the movie Beaches. She said, "Come help me on the movie Beaches," and I became what's called the music supervisor, where I helped her choose the songs that were in the movie, along with the director, Gary Marshall. Sure. You know Gary Marshall?
I do him very well. Yeah, it's Penny Marshall's brother.
Yeah.
He
Gary
created
Marshall.
shows
Yeah.
like Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley.
And, Pretty Woman. I mean, he's a legendary guy. And so we were picking out all the songs, and then there's one slot at the end that we all thought we would get an original song written, because when you write an original song, it can be nominated for an Oscar. And I wanted a chance to write that song. So they came over to my house one day to go over all the selections we had made. And when it came time to this final song, I suddenly remembered a song I had learned from a singer just like a year or two earlier in New York. It had been a country hit, and other people had recorded it. I didn't really know how much it had been recorded, but I had learned this song. I don't know how I learned it so fast. People have told me I have a phonographic memory. So I said, I've got the perfect template. This song is our perfect template. Let me sing you this, and then let's find a song like this, kind of thinking, oh, I'll get to write it. And then I stupidly lost the chance to write the song because I sang them The Wind Beneath My Wings. And I turned around, and they're all weeping. And so from that moment on, that slot was The Wind Beneath My Wings, and that's when I earned my stripes with Bette Midler, her first #1, and of course, a song that has...
Oh, it's a standard. It's a beautiful song that everybody loves.
It's a brilliant song, and there'd never been a song with that emotion, that sentiment about thanking someone. It wasn't about a love story. I mean, there's much love in it. So even though I didn't write it, I take great pride in the fact that I was not quite Sisyphus pushing, because Bette always comes back with, what else you got? And there was even a moment while recording the song, I swear to you, somewhere it's on a tape in a recording studio in a vault, where she's singing, did you ever know that, Marc Shaiman, you were leading me down the garden path with this song, and I will never let you forget it.
This is the kind of guy he is, though, okay? He had mentioned, what was her name, Janet Cole?
Judy Cole.
Judy Cole, okay? The one who said, there's the piano, go and play, right? It was opening night of Some Like It Hot?
Well, it was Hairspray.
Oh, was it Hairspray? Okay.
Judy Cole, this woman who, said, there's the piano kid, and then took me to community theater. And then this wonderful moment happened where on Broadway they do what used to be called the Gypsy Run-Through, where you do a dress rehearsal for all the people in shows who aren't going to be able to come to see the show because of the time, but you do this afternoon performance, which is your dress rehearsal also. But you get to do it in front of this wild audience of other Broadway people. And Judy Cole, she was still with us, and she came to the Hairspray Gypsy Run-Through. And I grabbed a hold of the mic before the show, and I introduced her to the audience. And you can imagine an audience full of people who all had their own Judy Cole in their life. So even though she had never made it to Broadway herself, for that one beautiful moment in that afternoon, she got an ovation like you couldn't imagine in a Broadway theater. And
No, that's the heart that's in this book. It's so, when you write a memoir, what you want to stay away from is, and then I wrote this, and then I wrote that, okay? A chronological thing. What you look for is some emotional core that will help you, that will add to that. And the way that it's written, your attitude towards yourself, which is almost like, I can't believe this is happening to me. Look what door is opening for me now. I can now do this, I can now do that. So you're maintaining your sense of wonder is a fun thing. Okay, what's also a fun thing in here is when Marc didn't have a good day, like if he had a bad meeting or got a bad phone call, he would cry, okay? And I got to the point when I was reading the book where I go, oh boy, that's a real bad meeting with Jeff Katzenberg. I wonder how many paragraphs will be till he's crying on the freeway again. And I got pretty good at that.
I write in the book, suddenly my big break came from the movies when I got asked to score the movie Big Business, which was with Bette Midler and Lily Tomlin, because I had helped her create 2 other moments. This was before Beaches. And then when Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was running Disney, found out that they hired a kid who had never scored a movie before, and he had heard what the director and editor had put into the movie, and he didn't like it in the temporary score. So he said, you can't have this kid score the movie. So he very gently had to fire me. And I was driving home. It was at 6:30 a.m. It was the only time he would have the meeting with me. and I was driving home on the freeway in a little cabriolet convertible that I had rented for my big break in Hollywood, and I was weeping, and I imagined that the guy behind me was thinking, why is it only raining on my car? A year later, I'm working on Beaches, and although it was a lovely, mostly experience, there was one moment where just people were not nice to me, and I had shown up to something, and someone said to me, well, what are you doing here? Anyway, I just made a very long story short, but it was very upsetting, and I ran out, and I got in the car, and once again crying on my way to my friend's house. And I like to imagine in the movie of my life, the same guy is behind me going, what the hell?
It's funny, I'm more interested in the guy's house that you're going to at 6:30 in the morning crying. Jumping around here, SNL.
Yeah, so I was in New York kind of making a name for myself in the cabaret scene as an arranger. And luckily, like after the first 5 years, you know, Alan Zweibel was part of the first classic 5 years of Saturday Night Live. We could move the spotlight onto you now, Alan, but so, and then I started, around there, like 10 years later, I guess, I started getting the call when Paul Schaefer wasn't there anymore. And at a comedy show, you have to have a funny Jewish guy at the piano. It's a law. Yep. And
it's in the Old Testament, yes.
The 11th commandment. So I started getting called like freelance. If someone had an idea already up there, they would call me and say, can you help arrange this? And then this glorious 1 year that Billy Crystal, Martin Short, and Christopher Guest were part of the cast. They all signed 1-year contracts. And that was the year I started getting calls all the time because those guys would have ideas, although hardly anything ever got on the show. But we would sit in the music room and laugh and kibitz and just so hit it off. And so my friendship, especially with Billy Crystal and Martin Short, was born then and still exists, literally just texting them both last night. And then I went on the road with Billy Crystal. He would, in his act, he would tell stories and I would score them. Or, he used to do a fantastic Sammy Davis Jr. and I would play. So I was on the road with Billy Crystal. Then he went off to do When Harry Met Sally. And he said to Rob Reiner, what are you thinking of doing for the music? And Rob said, I need a guy who knows every song that was ever written, like in the American Songbook. I want to use all great songs. And Billy, mensch that he is, said, have I got a guy for you? Billy says he used to call me Rain Jew because I just somehow knew every song. Boy, it's so Jewish tonight. I didn't realize. Are we at a B'nai B'rith meeting or at the Philadelphia Library? But so that's how that was my big break. That was after the debacle of being fired from big business. And I went to meet with Rob Reiner. I brought my Rodgers and Hart songbook because I had read the script for When Harry Met Sally, and there's a great song they wrote called Rodgers and Hart wrote. If they asked me, I could write a book. And the last lyrics are, then the world discovers as my book ends how to make two lovers of friends. So it's like, isn't that Harry Met Sally? So Rob was like, you're hired. And that began my relationship with Rob Reiner.
You know, it's interesting. First of all, I like the way you sing, okay? Because in the book, you describe the way you sing as like a Jewish cry for help.
Yes. Did you turn your mic off?
It's enough already with you. Is it on now? How about now? How about now? Okay.
Do we
So
need to
these two
start
Jews
all
who
over?
were on the deck of the Titanic. Oh, you heard that part. Okay.
So where were we? So then Rob Reiner.
Well, Rob Reiner. I mean, now, how many of Rob's movies did you score?
Boy, we should have fact-checked better. The book, it says 20, but the other day I went and looked, and I think it's 15. I think there were other things I did with him that somehow we must have thought 20. But anyway, what does it matter? I did every movie he did after When Harry Met Sally, and he kept moving from genre to genre. Oh, so after When Harry Met Sally, I was arranging, and we had Harry Connick Jr. singing, and then luckily they said to me and Harry, he said, we can't afford to put the Ella Fitzgerald and the Louis Armstrong records that are in the movie on the soundtrack. They have these contracts that would make it too expensive. Do you guys just go make your own record inspired by the music of When Harry Met Sally? Here's a couple of dollars. So me and Harry Connick Jr. got to make a record that made Harry Connick Jr. a star and made me a co-producer of this hit album, and we were suddenly on the road. I was conducting a big band with strings. It was glorious.
But listening to you talk right now, it's like...
Am I talking too fast?
No,
I'm trying to cram it all in there.
Does this work?
This is Sam, who works with me.
Is
Sam?
this one working? Hi, this one is not working either. Oh, is it working?
Yes.
Is this working? Okay. What's fascinating, I'm just listening to you, as we all are. It's like, I can't believe what happened. And then this happened. And then I met Billy, and he introduced me to Rob, and I did either 15 or 20 of his... Whichever one it is, that's a lot.
Yeah, I know.
It's a lot of movies. But when you asked, you had never scored a movie, right?
Right.
And what did Rob say?
Yeah, so after When Harry Met Sally, he called and said, hey, buddy, my next movie, you want to score my next movie? It's going to be Misery. It's a psychological thriller, horror movie. And of course I went, oh, yeah, thanks. But I was like, I don't know that I can do that. I mean, I'd loved musical theater, and I felt pretty confident that I could write songs and would someday get to write a musical. But a movie score, a psychological thriller? And I had just gotten an agent from When Harry Met Sally and Beaches, and even my agent, Richard, said to Rob, when he had to call Rob to negotiate, and he said to Rob, why do you think Mark can do this?
This is a good agent, by the way. Tries to talk the guy out of hiring him.
And Rob said, Richard, talent is talent. Thank God for Rob Reiner. And so he thought I could do it, and I had no choice but to do it. And not only that, I used to smoke pot all the time. From the time I was 15 till around 30, which is around Misery, I think maybe I was around.
You just cleared this room out. They're appalled.
I smoked pot before a meal, before a movie, before sex. I think I actually smoked pot before smoking pot. And I never thought I could write or arrange music without getting high. And then, like, by the third day of writing Misery, the idea of taking a toke at 10 in the morning, and I want to go to sleep by noon. And I realized, can I write music without getting stoned? So one day, I got through it, and I did it. And then 2 days, then another. And I thought, let's see how far this can go. So Rob Reiner not only gave me a movie career, he's responsible for me quitting pot cold turkey.
What Rob did, this is how brilliant he was. Talent is talent. I know with me, as a writer, there were times where I would have something that bombed, okay? And Rob would still give me a deal. And he had partners, the partners at Castle Rock, and I was cold in the business, okay? He says there's a difference between a good writer and a hot writer. And he believed in talent, and he embodied that, you know? So
Me and Alan worked on a Rob Reiner movie called North. That was just a huge flop. Just, right? I mean...
Huge is giving it too much credit.
And so then Billy Crystal, there was a friar's roast. And then the person who's being roasted gets up at the end and gets to roast everyone who spoke. And he said, Rob, just last movie was North. It was not well liked in some circles, like the Earth.
You know, I have Roger Ebert's review of North in my wallet, okay? So if you don't watch it, I'll read it, okay? We also, The Story of Us, you also...
Yes.
That did better than North.
Yes. Another movie that Alan co-wrote with Bruce Willis and Michelle Pfeiffer.
Right.
Where on this one, Rob called me and said, buddy, don't be disappointed, but I got Eric Clapton wants to write songs for the movie, and then those songs will be the basis of the score. Would you still do that? Would you still, like, figure out and work with Eric Clapton on how to turn his songs also into score? And I was like, Eric Clapton? I'm waiting for Dylan. But no, I was like, yeah, of course. And I got to work with Eric Clapton. Meanwhile, I was working on the South Park movie at the same time. And I was under intense deadlines. You know, I had to get music to the orchestrator or there'd be no music in front of the orchestra the next day. So one day, Rob and Eric Clapton came over to talk about the songs. And then Eric Clapton brought his guitar out and he's starting to play. And I could tell he wants to jam. But I had to say, can you guys get lost? I got to get back to South Park. So I missed my big chance to work.
It's one of the few people on this stage who told Eric Clapton to go fuck himself.
Yeah.
Okay. This has to do with you, but it's not going to sound like it has anything to do with you. But it's going to get to you, okay? When I was 10, my family took us to the Amish country. No. When Eric Clapton came in, okay, for this movie, The Story of Us, I was sitting in the control room. He was on the other side of the glass. He was sitting on a stool, and he had the monitor in front of him, and he had his guitar across his lap, and he said, "Okay, play me the scene," and 2 or 3 notes came out. Okay, play it again. Now there's 7 or 8 notes. Play it again. There's about 12 notes, and before you know it, there was a song that didn't exist 10 minutes ago. I watched it happen, and I went up to him and I said, "What the hell was that? What was that?" And he was modest enough, and I heard Paul Simon say the same thing. So I'm going to ask you that we don't write the songs; they're out there. We're just receptacles, and it comes through us like that. How is it when you write?
I understand that. They're like fireflies that you're catching and putting in a jar. Yeah, who can explain it? You know, it's God, it's nature, it's just a gift. Music, it's just the greatest thing ever. And it's a blessing. Can I get one more Eric Clapton story? Because I know we have lots to cover.
Yeah, Eric Clapton will be coming out,
Yeah.
by the way.
This is the classiest thing anyone ever did to show how you can say something in a classy way. On the Eric Clapton, for the end titles of the movie, we were doing the big record version of one of the 2 songs he wrote for the movie. And I had a string section that I wrote for. And on this one measure, I put on a minor major 7 chord. It's very film noir. You know, you can imagine Ida Lupino. You know, so, but I had to get the strings to balance just right, or else it sounds kind of discordant. And Rob was in the control room, and he was going, "What is that? What is that?" And I was like, "Just give me a minute. Let me just get the strings to balance right." So I was working, and I could still hear Rob from the control room. "What is that?" Remember how he would sweat on only one side of his bald head while he was like rubbing the other side? So I'm still trying to get my string chord in there. And Eric Clapton came out to the conductor's stand where I was, and he said, "You know, Mark, I think the strings at bar 32, it's just too attractive." And I had to stop it. I said, I had to tell the orchestra. I was just told to, like, get the fuck off of the chord in the nicest way possible. Can you imagine that? It's just too attractive. Isn't that wonderful?
And I'm still trying to imagine Ida Lupino, okay?
Now, I have someone waiting to go on back here. Matt, who's the lead trumpet with the Philadelphia Pops, the lead trumpeter. He was also on tour with Some Like It Hot for a full year, hitting them high notes. Matt Gallagher. He's going to come join me because we're going to do the theme to... I'm going to move over here. Here he is, Matt Gallagher. Of all the movies I got to score for Rob Reiner, the one that I cherish the most is The American President. A beautiful romantic comedy with Michael Douglas and Annette Bening about the American president. And I got to write a main theme, and it was one of my 7 Oscar nominations. And that year, I was nominated against John Williams, and we both lost. So you see, me and John Williams, we're the same. So knowing that Matt is from Philadelphia, knowing I was going to be here, I said, Matt, would you come and play something? And I figured that, oh, the theme to the American President would fit very nicely on a trumpet. So let's do it.
Wow.
I'm really getting my steps in tonight.
That's beautiful. I mean, I remember it from the movie, obviously, but being right here and watching you, watching him, that's, tell me about the process, okay? Aaron Sorkin writes a script, Rob shoots it. At what point do you see the movie to start working on something like that?
On that one, it was after they had finished filming, and there's just a beautiful montage. I miss main titles. Movies now, they just start right in, and they put all the credits at the end. But, you know, for a long, long time, there were nice, big main title where you get to kind of get the mood of the movie before.
Right.
And so he had this beautiful montage of just the presidential portraits from the White House. And it was there right in front of me. And I had to write music that summoned up that kind of respect.
Yeah, because there was a bit of high office in there, you know, and you can White House and what it used to be for us. You know what I mean? This was.
I was going to say
Hey!
it, but you never know.
Look at.
Yeah, I know. Now, if I had to write it, I would just write it circus music. What shall we move on to next?
Okay. Can I go backwards a little bit in time? Because this was very, very emotional when Bette sang on Johnny Carson's last show.
Yes. This is another high point for me. Once again, and like you were saying, it's like, can't believe this, but Bette called one day and said, they've asked me to be the last guest on Johnny Carson. And, you know, Johnny Carson loved her. And he was really very responsible for her stardom, that he kept putting her on and just, he loved her. And so she said, help me figure out, what am I going to sing? So I helped her. Me and Bruce Valanche, comedy writer, we also worked, she sang, we did a version of You Made Me Love You, like Judy Garland had sung it to a picture of Clark Gable in an old movie. we wrote new lyrics to that. And then I was in the shower. I get all my best ideas in the shower. Come along with me one day. You'll see. And I just thought of what's a song to sing to someone who's retiring, who's been listening to everyone talk. And I thought, one for my baby, one for the road. It's literally you're singing to a bartender who just wants to close up shop. And of course, when I called Bette, dripping wet, I've got it. And she heard me, and she said, what else you got? But she came over, we worked it out. We even had the chutzpah to rewrite a couple of lyrics at the end to be more specific about Johnny Carson. And then the director had that brilliant shot that had never been used before or since, where when you go home and Google it tonight, because you should, because it's so good, that the camera then in the last verse is just behind Bette, over her shoulder, Johnny Carson, just, right with her, just eyes locked. And what an experience. What an experience. I mean, there's a whole long story that's all in there. I mean, I'm not just trying to hawk my book, but I know we have so much to do and say, so there's more to it than just what I've said, but it is a high point. And the truth is, that Johnny Carson, Bette Midler moment, which she won an Emmy Award for, and the American President, those are two moments that I can watch. Maybe Sister Act is in there, where I can actually go, that was good. That worked out. Usually I will beat myself up. Why did I do that chord? Why am I trying to stretch out that melody over that scene? But that Johnny Carson final performance, that is just...
No, I after I read about it, I Googled it. You'll be doing yourself a favor, and you'll be crying. You certainly will. And right now, I'm still trying to move out Ida Lupino. And moving in is you stepping out of the shower. Okay.
How many people here know who Ida Lupino was? Oh. Yeah. Well, more than I would have thought. I'm happy.
Okay. I'll throw another name at you. Nora Ephron.
Nora Ephron. I did the movie Sleepless in Seattle. She had written the script for When Harry Met Sally, and then I got this incredible job this was everything, writing original music and arranging and orchestrating existing songs. So it was like really my wheelhouse. And,
excuse me, but you did a very nice thing, was because you saw the movie that she directed.
That is true. Her first movie she directed was called, I think, This Is My Life.
Right.
It was sort of kind of like a Roseanne Barr character. Julie Kavner played a housewife who becomes a comedian.
Yeah.
Very sweet movie that no one went to see. And I was in New York working, and I went to see it one afternoon, and I don't think I had met Nora, even though I had done When Harry Met Sally. But I called Rob's office and said, what's her phone number? Because I did the thing that I wish I did more often, and I wish other people would do more often for me, which is I called her out of the blue and just said, I saw your movie, and I loved it. And I loved how the songs that Carly Simon wrote for it. I just loved it. Maybe that's why, like a year later, or maybe it was When Harry Met Sally and the other movies I've been doing, but I got this great gig. Also got a nice, lovely little Oscar nomination. That was my first one for the song A Wink and a Smile.
Wink and a Smile.
Now, I don't know if you're trying to get me to go into all the dirt. But
it's not. Is it really dirt?
It's not dirt, but it was.
It was a little bit of a faux pas you made.
Oh, the faux pas. If you know who this photographer was, things started going a little south when I went to work with Nora at her apartment, and I saw a photograph in her kitchen, a black and white photograph of what looked like a couple from like the early '60s, maybe at a wedding or a bar mitzvah. And I said to her, "Oh, are those your parents?" And she said, "That is a Diane Arbus photo." Diane Arbus was famous for photographing human oddities.
Big heads and
Yeah.
one ear long.
Yeah.
It's some
So things started
Freak
getting
show.
a little shaky there.
Yeah.
Lots of long stories there where you'll hear about like how things seem to be going great, and then suddenly her mood changed with what
And he's crying on the freeway again.
Yeah. And there was a lot of ups and downs, and even this song, The Wink and a Smile, the lyrics were by my friend Ramsey McLean, who I had just worked with Harry Connick's second record that we did. And she loved the song. And then all of a sudden one day my fax, who here has heard of a fax? Ida Lupino used to put them out. Yeah.
She put it in a really good.
Fax suddenly, there were lyrics coming out of my fax with little flowers drawn on the bottom, and it said, "Love Carly." Shut up back there. So I was like, what's going on? I called the music editor, and I was like, what? I said, oh, Nora didn't tell you? She asked Carly Simon to write new lyrics. I was like, well, shouldn't she have called me? And what about Ramsey? And what was wrong with his lyrics? Cut to make a long story short. We all go to the Capitol Records, classic studio in L.A., and the producer told Nora that Harry was going to sing Carly's lyrics. The producer told me that Harry's going to sing both, and we'll hear which works best. So Nora comes, and Ramsey, the sweetest guy on earth, is there. And Nora comes in, and she says, "What's he doing here?" Blood. When you talk about the blood, like leaving your body, that's what it felt like it was like. And luckily, Harry Connick Jr. was like a white knight. He came in. I told him what was going on. He said, I signed on to sing the song you wrote with Ramsey, and that's all I'm singing. Now, a director does not like to be told no. That's normally a word that's never said to a director. But we changed one word for her, and the song ends up being Oscar nominated. The movie is a huge success. The soundtrack a huge success. And anyway, Nora and I patched things up great. There was one session where she said she had a withering way of putting things. She was like, what's that instrument playing the melody? I was like, well, that's an oboe. She said, well, I just found out I don't like oboes. So in the book, I talk about how we patched things up and actually ended up having a wonderful friendship again. But she unfortunately died far too early, but that I'm sure she's up in heaven telling angels she doesn't like harps.
Here's another name for you, Stephen Sondheim.
Now, that's a story I have not told in person. Now, how are we doing time-wise?
15 minutes.
We have 15 minutes left?
Yeah.
I want you to buy the book and read the Stephen Sondheim story. But, what? But, I have someone else is going to come and sing, and there's more. All right, I'm going to tell the story. At the time, I was still what we used to call Lovers with Scott Whitman, who was also my co-lyricist, and he directed Patti LuPone's, all of her acts. And this was at Carnegie Hall, her first time at Carnegie Hall. And so we had a cast party afterwards. It was just Patti LuPone. But
Yeah. It wasn't a very well-attended party.
Yeah. There were lots of theater-type people. And who was in front of the apartment building but Stephen Sondheim? Can't believe it. And he had written down the address but not the apartment number. So he's walking outside the apartment, pacing around. And I was like, oh, well, come with us. We bring him up. And we're upstairs, and Patty says, if you want to break the ice with Stephen Sondheim, ask him if he wants to smoke a joint. At this point, I had tried to start learning to smoke pot again to relax from the tension of film scoring. It didn't last long, but I did, and it was the time when that really strong pot started coming out. That was a whole other new generation of. So I said, Steve, Patty said maybe you'd like to smoke a joint. He was like, yeah. So I grabbed two other guys, the conductor and the orchestrator, and we went back to my studio, had a soundproof studio in the back of the apartment, and we're smoking a joint. And we keep, out of deference to Stephen Sondheim, we keep passing him the joint. We're not going around in a circle. We just keep passing it to him. And meanwhile, as you can tell now, I start telling stories. I start telling jokes. I'm making him laugh. I'm like, this is incredible. I can't believe I'm making Stephen Sondheim laugh. And so at one point he gets up, and I think he's just reacting to the story I just told. And he goes over to the other side where all the caterers' things are. And I said to him, oh, was that last story too much? And he turns and boom, collapses to the ground. The three of us are like. And luckily, no one in the party could hear either him hitting the floor or our jaws hitting the floor. So I rush over, and he sits up and he goes, wow, that pot's strong. I was like, yeah, maybe we've had enough. So we start talking, and everything's fine. It seems everything's fine. making jokes again, and suddenly, second time, timber, down he goes. So I go and get a pillow and a blanket. I cannot believe it. And he says, he says, I really should just go home. Just help, take me to a cab. So now I'm walking from the studio to the elevator. There's a hallway there. And once again, everything seems fine. Walking down that hallway with him, boom, down he goes again. Now I'm standing over. Now this is a year before Hairspray was going to go into rehearsal for Broadway. I'm standing over him. His skin has turned gray. I can tell, I never knew you could tell, I can tell his eyes have rolled to the back of his head. I'm standing over him and I'm thinking, I've done what every musical theater writer wants to do the year before their show was on Broadway. I've killed Stephen Sondheim. Luckily, he was okay. Put him in a cab. I called him the next morning. I said, are you okay? Just checking in on you. He said, yes. But wait till I'm dead to tell everyone the story. I held on to that story for 20-some years, and I mean no disrespect in telling it. It's just, to me, it humanizes him, and when he died, and everyone was, writing these beautiful stories about how, how he was and how he helped people, and I was like, once again, leave it to me. My Stephen Sondheim story is timber.
Timber.
So anyway, I mean no disrespect by telling that story, but...
No.
It was part of my life. It's a true story.
No, and it's so funny because your reverence for Stephen Sondheim.
Yeah.
It's
I got to get to Smash.
that's what I
Because-
was just going to get
yeah.
to. It was gonna. Hey, let's talk about Smash.
All right. So I worked on the TV show Smash, 2 seasons.
What a great idea for a show.
And, it was about people writing a Broadway musical. And although the first episode was great, and everyone had such high hopes, but then it just went south. And luckily, Scott and I got to write a song for every week. We had to write a song a week. And luckily, no one beat us up for our songs, but they beat the show up for its soap opera-like plot lines and stuff. But Scott and I got to write for 2 years a whole lot of songs that we're very proud of. And I would like to
Is there anything in particular that you would like to hear tonight?
Oh, well, funny you should ask. I called Matt, our trumpet player, and I said, is there a girl from Philadelphia who could maybe sing one of these songs from Smash? And so he suggested a girl whose name happens to be Kat, not unlike Kat McPhee, who was one of the stars of Smash. Her name is Kat Bruner. And Kat, are you back there? Come on out. She's going to sing... This song is called Moving the Line. Now, normally my co-lyricist is Scott Whitman. He's the king of song titles. He always is the one who comes up with songs. This is one song I came up with a song title. Who would have thought I would have come up with a song title with a sports reference? But I was thinking of how we were writing a song for Marilyn Monroe and the girl playing Marilyn Monroe, her frustration with show business and life. And I thought of the idea of, they keep moving the goalpost. But I thought, well, moving the line was a way to put it. And so Scott and I, we wrote this song actually over the phone. I was in LA working on a movie, and we wrote these lyrics over the phone. And Kat's going to sing it for us.
The field was bright with clover. I saw the finish sign. I started as a rover and the victory was mine. I thought the race was over, but they just keep moving the line. They cheered at my persistence, but prayed for my decline. The path of least resistance led to Hollywood and Vine. I tried to go the distance, but they just keep moving the line. I jumped all of the hurdles to break out of the pack. I started on the outside and then hit the inside track. I left the other fillies back at the starting gate. Was ready on my mark. I got to set to hurry up and wait. So talent and ambition gave me the chance to shine. I aced the big audition, but it's raining on cloud nine. Can't beat the competition, 'cause they just keep moving the line. I handled every corner, each bump along the track. And when I saw the ribbon, well, there was no turning back. I won the photo finish, I posed for all the men. But before I got my trophy, well, the race began again. So I've made friends with rejection, I straighten up my spine. I toast to resurrection when it's time to drink the wine. I toast to resurrection, but they just keep moving the line. Please give me some direction, 'cause they just keep moving the line.
Philadelphia's own.
I've got this broken one here.
Thank you, Kat. Kat Bruner.
8 minutes.
8 minutes.
Yeah. Since we have 8 minutes, is there anything that you would like to talk about that we didn't mention today? We barely touched Hairspray, right?
Oh.
Which was a monster hit, as we all know.
Yeah, yeah. In the 8 minutes we have left, is there any, if you want to yell out a question?
Yeah,
because
questions
there's-
could be good.
Yes, sir. Wow. Just wow. That's enough. Okay.
Yeah.
Say that again? Do you have a favorite Cole Porter song and why? Oh, how can you choose? I did an arrangement for Bette Midler of Miss Otis Regrets. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-da. So Miss Otis Regrets, what a brilliant song. But Cole Porter, and just for the lyric, every time you say goodbye, there's no love song finer, but how strange the change from major to minor. Oh my God. You know, no, Cole Porter, you know.
Anyone else?
But enough about Cole Porter.
When you had the moments of rejection, what was the self-talk that you gave yourself to keep going, to believe in yourself?
You know, I talked a few moments where, you know, I kept hearing, and I got really sick of hearing, don't give up, Mark. You're so talented. Things are it's gonna work out, like that morning I spoke about. I don't know, my chutzpah, but I don't know, I guess the idea of giving up, throwing in the towel, it just really never occurred to me. Maybe I was full of myself, but I just...
No, I think you have to be, I think you have to have chutzpah. I think you have to be maybe a little bit naive, but in a good way, because if somebody told you what the odds are that this kid, right, from Scotch Plains, right, would turn out to be Marc Shaiman, I think you go, well, no. What are the odds of that? You had a passion and you followed it, so I applaud you.
I mean, it's, you know, I think that's another gift from God, is that ability to just go, I'm going to do it. Once, after working with Bette Midler the first time when I was 17, when I was 19, I heard she was going to do a world tour, and I called her from New York and said, I'd love to be your vocal arranger again. She said, I'm only hiring local people from Los Angeles. I thought about it for a minute. I went to, I think, what was the first ATM that ever existed on Varick Street in New York. I took out all my money. I took a cab to JFK. I flew to Los Angeles. I called her from a payphone, if you remember what a payphone is. I had to wait for Ida Lupino to come out of the payphone. And I called Bette and I said, I'm in LA. What's the address for the rehearsal studio? I can't believe I did that. But I did. So
Look, all you people out here, whatever you're doing, if you love what you're doing, you're successful at it because you didn't let anybody say no. It's like anything else. It was me when I started writing. There were a lot of naysayers, okay? And the same thing with you. You just go, no, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, and that's what the book really is. It's just these stories of, I hope people will read them and go, yes, show up, say yes, don't give up. Because I'm just this living, walking example of how wonderful, wonderful things can happen even after you think, oh, no. I mean, we thought our Broadway dreams were dead. You know, Scott and I were writing songs in the 80s and musicals in the 80s, and they weren't getting on. We couldn't catch a break. And then my film score career came out of nowhere. And then at the end of that 10 years of doing film scores endlessly, I got to do South Park. Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, a musical movie, and that put my name back in the Broadway community. And when the woman who got the rights to Hairspray was asking everyone, who should I get to do the score for Hairspray, everyone kept saying to her, get Marc Shaiman, get Marc Shaiman. So I thought that dream was dead. And then suddenly Hairspray was, I say it was like a dream in the dream come true. To call it a dream come true couldn't even... And that reminds me of the opening night of Hairspray. We didn't even touch on that I lived through the AIDS epidemic. And, you know, that was, 15 or so years of just something that I think maybe we're all maybe in the same ages range that you know what that was. And the opening night of Hairspray, they handed, once again, I got my hands on a mic. We're all on stage taking a bow. And I just said that I wish that balcony went straight to heaven so that all the friends we lost could see that Scott and I had made it, that we'd brought our 80s East Village sensibility to Broadway. Somehow it had all come true, and I just wish they had all been there to witness it.
This book, like I said before, is not only an example of what to do, not let anybody tell you you can't do it, but it's something to give your children, because it will be an example to them. If they have a passion for something, don't let anybody tell you no. And I look at the emotionality that you have, okay, and just like having Judy Cole take a bow, it's a credit to you. The book is filled with that humanity in it, and highly recommended, obviously. It's a tribute to you, Mark.
Thank you, Alan.
You somehow captured yourself.
Thank you.
Okay, now they just did this, which means victory, okay? So, any more questions?
I'd like to consider retirement. Really, I mean, it's 50 years. I'm a few months away from 50 years of doing this since I was 16. And unfortunately, my skin has gotten thinner. You would think your skin would get thicker for all the slings and arrows, but mine has gotten thinner, and I just don't really want to get down there in the lion's den. I like being in the Coliseum, schmoozing about, but I don't want to necessarily get down there with the lions anymore. But
This may be the first time the word schmooze and Coliseum was in the same sentence.
But we'll see. I have to admit, I say this, and then a week ago, for one whole day, I had nothing to do. Literally had nothing to do. And by 2:30 that afternoon, I was like, what the? But yeah, the book. The book is something that I hope to keep, like I said, allow people to experience and get from these experiences, hopefully.
It's an inspiration, it really is. And want to thank everybody for coming tonight, and thank you, Mark.
Thank you.